in place, and there was so much, it was so grounded and rooted in almost pretty much everything that you heard from our artists who performed at this wedding, but also the drums that they used, the elders getting up and doing this circular, almost like not like a chant, but it was a lot like stepping. But over and over and over, every single time I go on tour in Africa, I am reminded how we are woefully using counterfeits of what was really originally intended. As much as I love my letters, I could never hold a candle to what they were doing and the feeling that overtook you as these elders were chanting and going around this couple. You felt it in your spirit, And at the end of our concerts over there, the men would get up, and I'm still on stage, doing stuff. And I look out and I see these men like swaying in groups all around this arena. It's a soccer.
Dang, I was there. I was right on the edge. The soccer. Cerise.
I had to watch my screen. I don't know why my screen cut out. So
okay.
Sorry. Y'all can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. The soccer. Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, in Africa, this huge arena, bigger than any I've ever done a show in here. And we've done big ones, All Stars and all that, but this huge place, and there's these groups of Black men swaying at the end of the show. And I was so taken, by how emotional they were, and they're crying, and they got their arms around each other and they're swaying. And I had to ask one of the stagehands who was local. I said, please excuse my ignorance, but can you help me understand what is happening? What am I seeing? I had never seen anything like this. Not even at TD Jakes' Promise Keepers or anything or at Promise Keepers or TD Jakes' event for men. So he said they're happy. They're happy. So what they're doing their tribal chants, and it sounded like they were singing. But again, you talk about. The things that we do here, or you see women dancing over there, and it's like twerking, but it's so much, it's pure, and there's this beautifulness. It's not twerking, there's this wholeness, this more chastedness to it. And so I guess that's what I would say, that I feel that we have to get to an understanding of, yes, what exists even in our homeland today, that we're actually using counterfeits of, so that we can get back to that true meaning. But then we need to understand how throughout our history, our music and our media has time and time again been a passport to more freedom, to more liberty. Everything from the drums that they didn't let us play as our ancestors play as slaves because they could use it to communicate. They would not let them play the drums. Then to them having the spirituals to communicate, messages about the going and seeking freedom and when to stay and when to run. To the early 1900s and late 1800s to the art and the wording, the art and even Black Negro films that are under talked about, that were meant to elevate our condition, and writings by people like W.E.B. Du Bois, who cautioned us against letting people in power pivot poor Black people and poor white people who had also been lied to against each other. And that media didn't prevail. And then we get to, fast forward the civil rights movement, our music, like the Isley Brothers and Aretha Franklin helping get us some more freedom. But right after that, the Blaxploitation movement and Blaxploitation movies and flooding our communities, with drugs, and also the systematic taking out, literally, of our leaders, and even our leaders who were more moderate, like Fred Hampton, so that was advocating for unity across all social groups and racial groups. And so now I think that we are at a point where we're in the unfortunate, when people talk about having a slave mentality. But what the last round of art and displacing our leaders gave us, I believe, is actually Jim Crow and blaxploitation mentality. Because I happen to know my ancestors' whole story. I was back to 1620, and they were always busy getting free. Even my great grandfather, who became free through the Emancipation in 1867, went straight to the Freedmen's Bureau, got his registration, went straight to Ohio. Was like, I'm not going to get back re-enslaved, and was a property owner and the first Black business in Ohio within 15 years. His story is, yes, important to me, but it is not as unique that there weren't others going quickly to make moves. The people who had immediately gotten free and had the media and the music of spirituals and drums and music that promotes liberty, they were minded about their business and their legacy. It's only that now that our music and our art has changed that you see us promoting and seeking other things, and that's very dangerous, because where it led us to freedom before, it seems to be leading us back to bondage now, and we have to change that. I have to yield the floor. Sorry for going so long.
I love it every minute.
No, I think that one of the things that we rarely do in the conversation around art is we rarely get a chance to forecast and at the same time look back and then be centered in now. So what we want for the future, what happened in the past, and where we are presently. In this article, through this efforts of this art patron, I think, and then Dr. Kelly's analyzation yesterday when we were on our live about Black art, it keyed me on to something that I love to call intentional intelligence. And what's the intention? So I've always thought I'm buying art to support the artist, and I'm hoping that my purchase will help that artist create a legacy and make his work more popular or make his work worth more for his future family. And I never thought about the other artists. I never thought about where Black art in the canon is. Canon, sorry. And I never really, I didn't know really. I've heard about the canon, but I never really thought about it in the lens of where Dr. Kelly was at. And as we look at all of Black art, whether it's music or fine art or plays or any art form, we have the same issue in art, period, is that the Black art tends to show up as we were enslaved. It doesn't show up anywhere else until slavery, and then boom, that's when Black people had art after slavery. And it's like, no, I love the fact that Dr. Kelly keyed me on the fact that Black art did show up before slavery. And I know people say, yeah, of course they did, Martin, but we're not in museums that way. White art or white history of entertainment or theatricals or anything shows up, but Black art tends not to be centered in that conversation of pre-slavery conversation. So I think it's so important what Raymond McGuire is doing. Do you have anything else you want to contribute, Dr. Kelly?
I just think that what Sharice was saying was just awesome, because when you start thinking about music and look at music today, I'm just talking about right now today, and just listen to the lyrics in what the push is, and then you go back down memory lane back to the 70s and the 80s and listen to it, in the 60s and listen to all the great love songs and how it was elevating us forward. And then you look at the Black Wall Streets, and then you look at how they were burned out. And when she said our leaders were systematically killed, then you start understanding, that $1.6 trillion that we have. You start understanding what art really is about. It's about money. And when you were saying that you was looking at it, you were supporting artists, think about all these musicians. We run around and talk about Elvis Presley. Let's get the guy from rock and roll, and everybody knows it wasn't Elvis. You know, Elvis went to the juke joints to learn to get it. But at the end of the day, we all know that Little Richard was the man. We all get it that Michael Jackson, even though he started at 4 years old, they changed that to the king of pop, when really, that's my opinion, that Mike was the epitome of music. Just music, period. You know, a kid at 4 years old with the master of his craft and broke so many records, and not only in music, but video and all the great things that he did do. And then he was vilified. So we wouldn't have all other kids to emulate his greatness, because he did have a great part of what he did. And, you know, you look at, it's just amazing to me, you know, that we don't celebrate our artists the way that other people celebrate the artists. We don't do it. And then when we get to a point where, you know, you was talking about buying some work, when there was a piece of artwork bought by P. Diddy, of an artist, I can't remember his name, and I should know his name, is a great artist out of Chicago. But he bought a piece for $67 million. Where the artist had sold that piece to a museum, I think about $7 million. But that artist didn't reap the benefits of that $67 million that he didn't pay for that Sotheby's for auction. And these are the kinds of things that go on with not only artists, but musicians also. You know, one of the challenges that many people had with Michael Jackson was, you know, he was buying black artists catalogs and give them to them. You know, there was a story of Michael and I think it was Paul McCartney or one of the Beatles doing that song, "The Girl Is Mine," and they went to lunch, and he was talking about how he didn't own his catalog, and when they got back to the video shoot, Mike had went out and bought all the Beatles catalogs. And these are things that happen, a lot of times happen, but we don't celebrate our artists like I think we should celebrate our artists. I always talk about the celebration of our artists, because we, you know, when you ask the question, who is the highest paid African American artist right now, I guarantee most people don't know it's Mark Bradley, who's making $12 million for every piece of work that he does. The question is not how much he's making, how did he get there? And what about all the rest of the artists who are out here struggling and clawing, trying to go up that ladder? And it bears down to celebrating of these great artists who are doing great work all over the world.
Amen, amen. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing. Appreciate your time you give us tonight. We're going to go on to our next article, and it's also discussing Black art. You know, tonight is creativity news, so we usually cover news in the space of art, and you know, we're not an entertainment newsroom. We don't typically have that, but the things for me, I really wanted us to, you know, be able to highlight parts of our culture that typically you don't hear about on the news. And art is that space, whether it's theater, whether it's film, whether it's television, or it's actual paintings. So this is another article. And I thought this was really interesting because, you know, when I think of living while Black, I don't think about it in a typical space of art. But basically where, you know, again, this is, you know, I was trying to find some wood to knock on wood, that I have a circle of people that even though they may not know each other, they are aligned. And in that circle, when I discuss one thing, it leads me to around the circle to the other piece. So Dr. Kelly started us off yesterday. Cherise had me on this live they did today within the music space that reminded me of what Dr. Kelly said. I knew I was doing tonight. I'm like, dang, this is, you know, and then Cherie said, I'm gonna come into your room. I didn't ask. And she said, oh, she volunteered. I was like, oh, that's what's up. We can have this really sick conversation around art, ownership, and Blackness, and intentionality, being intentional. So this article I just posted is what's coming out is Living While Black, portraits of everyday resistance from a professor at Mills College. The project began as a series of illustrations inspired by the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. And I want to juxtaposition that with what just happened today. Oh, Anthony, you're back. Well, before I go there, Anthony, you came up to the stage. Welcome. Did you have a comment or anything you wanted to share?
A couple of things, man. Can you hear me first and foremost?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. Hey, Martin, I've shared stages with you before, and you're a very intelligent, well-spoken brother. I believe you're based in Atlanta. I could be wrong.
Philly and Louisiana.
Oh, sure. Weren't you doing like a project with some young men from
Yes,
Atlanta?
yes, I did. I used to live in Atlanta years ago.
Ah, that's what it was. Okay, good stuff. All right. You know, so as far as the artwork thing is concerned, definitely see, you know, some merit to the argument about, you know, pre-slavery, post-slavery, you know, Black artwork, blah, 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 blah. One thing I will point out, and I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of walking through the Atlanta airport.
Yes.
Where like the plane train runs on the track. And I don't know if at the time, if you'd seen the various Black art that's featured in that airport. It's pretty amazing. Some really good stuff.
Good pieces.
It definitely predates slavery. You know, as a discussion point, if anybody, it's literally the world's busiest airport, and if anybody has occasion to go through, it might be worth checking out. So that's just one thing I wanted to bring up. The other thing is what Doctor was saying, and Doctor's a super sharp, well-spoken guy as well. But it's so tough when you start comparing music eras. You know, I understand conceptually what he's saying, but it's a really tough argument, because it kind of, you know, like they're definitely, back in the days, they had sexually explicit music as well. So, you know, it's really hard when you want to compare music eras, but I do understand where he's coming from. I just, you know, wanted to speak to maybe a little bit of a counterpoint. That's all.
Well, I want.
Can I chime in on that?
And before, yes, definitely, sis. Before you do, I just want to say this, and maybe a point of clarity that I didn't make as a moderator, as the leader of the pack, so to speak, that I should have made to put the nail in the frame, the last frame, is my personal reason for specifically having this type of a conversation round robin tonight was that it was a eureka moment for me when Doc started talking about pre-slavery and how we show up in museums and these institutions like the Rock Hall of Fame. They tend to not even point back to anything pre-slavery. They tend to, with Blackness, showed up when we were slaves. Like, you know, like Blackness all of a sudden popped up. So that was my intention, and my takeaway from this conversation in general is that, oh snap, yo, we did create stuff. Oh yeah, duh. And I feel like I myself have been part of the problem that I don't look for it. I look for Greek stuff, or I look for when Thanos or Hercules or whatever, but I'm not necessarily always looking for where's the Black Greek mythology, what's pre-Greek mythology, you know? And I was like, dang, that's right. So that was just one of the couch staff. But definitely, Sharice, have at it. You know, you're our music expert.
Sure. Okay. So yeah. Thanks for the time that you chime in. So I think there's a few things. One, the slave, all of the things, slave. You go to the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, and I would highly recommend everybody in this room go and take 5 friends. I think everybody in America needs to go. And I say that like at my age, but I took my teenagers, right? And who are pretty chill back. They've been doing a lot of stuff. They've done a lot. They've done a lot. They've interviewed like John Lennon and not John Legend. They've interviewed like John Lewis. And they see a lot of Black, I guess, excellence. But so the bar I think was pretty high for the Legacy Museum. In Montgomery, Alabama, of all places, you don't really, it's not like New York or whatever, but it is definitely the best Black focused museum I've been to in the United States. I have 3 family members in the Smithsonian. I've been to the Rice Museum here in Atlanta, which is great. The Muhammad Ali Museum in Louisville, which is also great. There are a lot of great ones. So I'm not saying that to diminish the others, but the Legacy Museum does an amazing job of really making you feel, not just know, but making you feel the separation that happened on every level possible for people who came here as human enslaved people, all the way up to us today. The separation between like families, all of the things that the Willie Lynch letter says would happen. It helps you feel, not just know. And I gotta keep saying that. It helps you feel that it happened, or the way they laid it out, the way they did it. And so I say that to say that Anthony is Anthony is right, that there is some music early out in African American culture that had what would be considered more salacious wording. One of the places where it is give me credit for starting early by a man named Robert Johnson. Who, excuse me, a man named Robert Johnson, who was born in 1911. He's a guitar player that wasn't known for having much talent early out. It's said, even by his grandchildren and children and friends, that he went away. Many people say that he made a deal with the evil one, and that he came because they couldn't understand how he could come back in less than a year and be able to play phenomenally. But not only that, his music that he played talked about, kind of dealing and riding with and chasing the evil one and being friendly with him. And his music started to have that more salacious feel. Many guitar players, all the way up through Little Richard, and Hendrix on, many guitar players say that the combinations that he created became the bedrock. We all know that, in the bedrock of the blues, he changed blues forever, jazz, everything. And so my point is that there is a moment that at least most guitar players who have done their history, and I'm talking like some of the greatest, but they will point to and say this is when they would say that Black music fundamentally changed. And the people who were around during that time say that it was absolutely tied, not so much to over racism, but to someone literally going and making a deal with something even worse, more evil than racism, the source of evil. And all that was standing as to when it changed or how it changed overtly, we have absolutely swung in the pendulum of what used to be the music of Africa, the music of the South, once people got here and into America, and then with mostly functional, helpful songs to let you live, to help you get from place A to B, be more free, all the way over to songs that demean our people. I think that Hollywood is doing a much better job of getting us reconnected. The Woman King is a very important movie, whether people agree with everything about it or not. It's the only movie that helps us even get curious about actual queens or warriors of that time, but to help us get interested in understanding Queen Enzia, who was also another queen of that time and of that ilk, who fought to keep her people free and led them in spite of everything being against her. Understanding how does our spirituality tie in to Africa. The entire Bible, most of it happened in Africa. But how is it that we are not making connections and trying to understand? So who was Aya, and who was this deity Aya, and these other deities that Africans call to, and how much of that is in line with like the actual Bible or the art of that time? There's so much art of Africa that could be thought to depict things that are in the Bible as spiritual that we don't lean into now. But I think if people would make it a point to study and to learn, but if you can get to Montgomery, Alabama, and go to the Legacy Museum, it's created by the Equal Justice Initiative, the same people who brought us the movie Just Mercy. I think that it's illuminating in more ways than I can say without taking over the whole room. But that's what I would say. The disconnects actually worked. The disconnects through the slave trade, and now we have the work of undoing them, because right now no one is saying we're not allowed to make art that celebrates Africa, or to actually celebrate the art that was there, or to share it and to teach it. But Martin, as you just saw, one of my good friends owns a company called AfricanAncestry.com, and I think as a people, unfortunately, all I can say is that it worked. We want to know our tribe, things like that, but we have to get really passionate about actual Africa and all together.
Thank you.
Hey, Sharice. You said a lot and it was, it was interesting. It really, really was interesting. I'll leave it at that. I'm not gonna come in here and try to it's all good. Thank you for sharing, Sharice.
So one of the things I wanted to, Sharice, thank you so much for breaking things down. My wife always points to Johnson and his music as there's a few others that have very explicit lyrics, in the 20s and 30s, and we just don't really dive into that history. I forget the name of the singer that Queen Latifah played on HBO, but that was a great documentary movie about Black music at that time period, and just what Black women had to do if they wanted to sing and perform.
Etta James?
Yes, Etta James. Oh my God, that was a great movie. But I did want to kind of shift our attention to this article at the top, because I think we are in a unique period of time. And so we just saw the January 6th committee. And one of the things, if you watch the hearing, they showed clips and snippets of the Congress people, whether it's Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell, all calling different armed forces units to come and save the Capitol. And my wife was saying, "Who's filming this?" And I was like, because it definitely looked like it was somebody on an iPhone or somebody. And so I said, well, it's probably one of the sit-ins and stuff like that. But I want to take your attention to this book, and I want to circle back around to this point about who's filming this, right? I love the way that this book idea came about, and it's important to me because we constantly, it feels like, I'm not going to say period, point blank, but I do feel like we, a lot of times, will have Black history moments, and there is zero digital footprint or assets or art about that moment. One of those moments for me that I really messed up was Just 6 back in MySpace days. I helped organize, as one of probably 40 people who helped organize a big protest in Louisiana about these young Black children that were going through racism in their school. And of course, because it was MySpace and the big I'm not going to name them, civil rights activists were ignoring us and we're ignoring it. But we, the bloggers and the people at that time were like, yo, these kids is going through it. We're going to go down there and support them. We arranged bus from DC and all this stuff. And then finally, the big three, we'll say, came down and wanted to be in front, what they do. But my point was, I look back at that time period like, dang, I didn't record it. I didn't have anything. I don't even know if anybody took pictures. Like, it's gone. But this book is where I think we really need to be always thinking, always capturing content, like ABC, always be capturing content. Because without that, somebody else is telling our story. And I love the concept of this book as a photojournalism essay of the time period of living while Black. But in that space of that summer on a protest, but honestly, there's been so many other incidents, the incident at the Airbnb, the sisters in California at the Airbnb, the sisters on the train that was going to drink wine. And this past week, the college from, Charlemagne, was it North Carolina or South Carolina? Shaw College, Shaw University, right. The kids get stopped on a bus. There's police dash cam of these stopping these kids who are they're going on their way from the Carolina to Atlanta to go to a financial literacy summit, and they get pulled over under the guise there might be drugs on the bus. And then the same thing happened to young women that were lacrosse team. They get pulled up. But what we have as a record of that is not the young people's videos and young people's. We have police dash cam, and that's what's going to go into the Smithsonian. So I think in full circle, coming around, are we thinking when it comes to art? My question to the panel is sort of like, maybe why aren't we thinking of our life as an art essay? Any thoughts? Our expert, Dr. Kelly, or Sharice? Go ahead, Sharice.
I would just say that what you said, that looking at it that way, somebody once likened looking at those with like people who are like just like watching, like who are like, I guess like perfectionists or fear based, right? Like people who want everything to be perfect before they take action. I might be one of those people. So this is why it resonated with me. I was like, dang it. They were saying like, look at your life as like a movie, right? And if it was a movie that it was like, I'm gonna pick somebody, here's Wanda, and this is her life, and she was born, she had a successful career, and then that was the movie. You would turn it off, you would never watch it. But if you look at your own life that way, right, it can help you as a movie or as a piece of art, that it can help you embrace the times that seem hard or challenging, this is a climax, or this is a subplot, will you get that funding, or will you get through this challenging person on the subway today, or whatever. But I think that you're right, Martin. We do need to look at our lives as art. They are not that. It seems like so long when you're here living it. But when you take the time to sit down and like even just to go study your ancestors, like I mentioned, my great grandfather who got free, you see, when you look at their lives and their milestones and their accomplishments, and you kind of unpack like, wow, they probably had to walk from Virginia to Ohio, and they're like, when you look at the people who came before us, I think they lived so much more artfully. I think that they embraced challenge and they have so much more grit than we do right now. And I don't know if they were conscious that they were living their lives as art, but many of them absolutely seemed conscious that they were living to leave the right legacy. and to leave a legacy worthy of having been lived, right? And to redeem this time. And so I just wanted to chime in from that point of view. I think you're right. I think that we should embrace looking at our time here on this planet artfully. And with all the goods and the bads that come with it, the same way we appreciate movies and art pieces that they're dynamic, to embrace our time here and to redeem that time, and not be afraid of the ups and downs, but to go to run and like an eagle, like go straight. Like I know it's not the eagle, maybe it's the.
I love how Sharice's phone always, like, as she's really landing her plane, the phone dies on purpose. Sharice.
There's an animal. I'll look it up and
I got you.
There's an animal that in nature that when all the others are running away from the storm, this particular animal, they turn around and they run into it like head on. So they face it, but they run into it because they also know that by running into it, they'll get through it faster. And I think that that's a very artful way to look at things. And it seems as though the people before us, for all their flaws or their successes, they seem like they face things more head on. They were more truthful. They were more honest, truthful, artful depiction of being here. So I think you're. I think you're right. We should look at it that way. I think.
Amen. Dr. Kelly, you were gonna say something?
I was wanted to say who plans the narrative for Black people. We don't have a lot of us. Now, I'm not talking about the movie producers. I'm not talking about the great songwriters. But when you start talking about the narrative of Black folk, why we don't record it? That's really a question that I still can't wrap my head around. Why many times when we look at our past, we don't take the time to record it like other races of people who recorded, and then not only do they record it, they work hard at erasing who we are. And when you start talking about, you were in a situation where you was a part of a whole energy, and you didn't think to record it. I don't know if it's one of those. There was a lady by the name of, and I'm missing names, Sandra DeGrew, I think was her name, who did post-traumatic slave syndrome. And
Dr. Joy.
I believe that's her name.
Yeah, Dr. Joy DeGruder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she talked about how we respond and how we act because of our past. And when Sharice starts talking about, the greatness of the people that we stand on, the shoulders that we stand on. I was talking today with somebody about last place trophies. When they started doing last place trophies, now what do you have to work toward to be involved in anything? You're gonna get a trophy anyway. And our kids now just feel like they should just get it, as opposed to looking back and seeing the struggles. I remember one time I was talking to my mom's, and my mother, I was saying to her as young as I'm 20 years younger than her, so, Mama, how could you drink from the black water fountain? How could you go to the back of the that's how you could do it? And she smacked me in the face and said, not with her hand. What she said was, that's just the way it was. I think that's just the way it is right now with Black folk. We're not looking at our history. We're not recording our history. And I'm not saying nobody's recording our history. I'm just saying it just doesn't seem like we're not recording our history and looking at our history as the great history that we have. And, because that's how I see. That's why I respond to art the same way. And to a point of reference earlier, I hope I wasn't insulting anybody by saying that there are no explicit languages in terms of in the music. I was really speaking to the
Oh no, Dr. Kelly, don't even go there. Don't even go there. Let Mr. Yeah.
Yeah, I just was speaking to how the hate in music right now is just almost unbearable to listen to, and that's what I was saying. But again, that's my part to that. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Absolutely. I brought up Auntie Donna Brown because I think that one of the things that we also don't talk about in the space of art is protecting that art, you know, and how do you protect this piece? And we're getting to an interesting part of the digital space where YouTube is saying, and other platforms, hey, artists, if you want to produce music, we're willing to do a split with you and allow your music to be shared and played in the beginning of some of these videos or digital content in exchange for a revenue split. And Ati, can you just give us an update from the U.S. Patent Office and Trademark Office about what they're saying that the individual, so we're talking about kind of the creator economy and being this era of creators, and we're talking about creativity and Black creativity. What is the U.S. Patent Office just changed its policy about who can file trademark patent or trademark? Auntie, you there? You may not be able to. Well, I'm going to jump in and just, for the sake of time, the U.S. PTO has said a place like LegalZoom or these trademark type of websites can no longer file on your behalf. You, as the creator, have to do the initial filing. So you can hire somebody to help you fill out the application, but the creator has to actually do the filing. And so I'm seeing, to your point, Doc, you know, that question of thinking, well, who's creating the narrative. I think we have all the tools to succeed. And I think it's really important for us. In this article above us, the sister is an illustrator. She's done these illustrations of Black culture, and the theme of this book that she's releasing is living while Black. And I think that I hadn't thought about this until this room, but you know, Black life is art. Like we are, and when you look, who was it? Dr. Kelly, is it Ernie Barnes that did those paintings that were on Good Times? I'm not sure, Dr. Kelly. There you go, Dr. Kelly.
I'm mashing it, but yes, Ernie Barnes.
Okay.
You know, painting life. But you know, one of the challenges with the patent office for artists, not musical artists, but artists, is that they won't patent your style. You can't. When I went to the patent office with my style and talked to them about patenting my style, because I believe I had created an original style. That's how all artists are, not just me. And I was told you can't patent your style. That's what I was told. They're artists, but musical artists get their stuff copyrighted, and they can continue to get paid on it. There was a movement to get the same kind of deal years ago, and we still can. I mean, you know, they're doing it on with the NFTs and stuff, but if an artist sells a piece of artwork to anyone, he doesn't get any money out of that piece of soul. And I think that's a travesty to the person who's doing the work, where a gallery can get 50%, haven't done any work, and the artist get probably 20%. Because the gallery always says all they had to do leading up to the actual work. And that's, to me, that's just not right.
Auntie, you back with us? Are you able to unmute, or if you're not, it's cool. Auntie, going once, twice, 3 times. Okay, cool. All right, y'all. Well, this has been an excellent conversation around Black art and creativity. We'll be back tomorrow night with the Black Business News, which we have a lot of headlines for that. And as we always say, we want you to please be safe. We know we just had a mass shooting in North Carolina. Prayers and thoughts go out to those families. So, we have targets on our back, and on the fronts. Please, if your Black intuition or your spidey senses tingles, get out of the area you're in and go with flow. And please keep your head on a swivel. We'll be back tomorrow night with Black Business News. Thank y'all for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you and the time you spend with us. Stay Black, y'all. We'll be back tomorrow night.
Good night.
This nigga provocateur tried to stumble us. I didn't realize I would never invite him to stage. Okay.
Hey man, I don't know if you believe in the Secret Service, conspiracy theory, or any of that stuff. But and algorithms and all that stuff. I just text you something that I saw on the internet the other night.
Okay.
I didn't even click the link on it because I thought it was that crazy.
Right.
But when you see it, you are not going to believe how they're vilifying us Black people, man. And this was on regular TV.
Oh, I believe it. Like, bro, this is that I believe anything. like,
And dude tried to check me, man. I was like, hold on.
Yeah, he was an idiot. He's a provocateur. He's a provocateur. I didn't realize who he was. Like, I forget. I don't really be. I'll be in space with him, but I don't really like. I'm not in those spaces enough to know how idiotic he is.
Trying to make the girl feel bad.
No, Sharice. Yes. Yeah.
Nobody asked you to open your mouth.
Right. That's the whole point. No one asked him to open his mouth. No one cares. The thing is, like, the energy those people have to disrupt, they can't do it in our space because there's nothing to disrupt. We're giving our opinions, and there's nothing wrong with our opinions. So it's hard for them to come at us because they don't understand that, we're just giving our opinion.
Yeah,
But
because he's trying to come at me with the music. I'm like, dude, I'm not